Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are continuing our series on our story, and this is probably the toughest video of our story because this is probably the toughest part of our relationship, and that happened over the summer of 2019. So how it all started and what it was all rooted in was my struggle with jealousy. I am a very jealous person. I constantly compare myself to other people. I compare Diego to other guys, or I did, and I compare our relationship to other people's relationships. And that was not healthy and caused a lot of problems.
So when we started dating, we'd hang out a lot. I'd come over to our house, we'd watch a movie, we'd just hang out, we'd do fun things, and we were having a lot of fun. And we were both enjoying it, and we could both always see that, and that was always really great for us because, we're both just really happy in our relationship and everything's going really great. But then things would happen when the first few times that we were starting to hang out as a couple, but in a group with other people, when there were other people around, I felt like, oh, we don't even feel like a couple right now. Like, it felt like, oh, yes, we're both here, and we came together, and obviously, everyone knows we're dating, but, realistically, it doesn't feel that way in the actual situations. And it just happened, every time we hung out with people. So, to me, in my head, that was just like, okay, well, we obviously have fun whenever we spend time together by ourselves, and she seems to like me then. Does she just not like me in front of other people? What's the deal? So the problem for her was, to her, me being silly was no longer just me being silly, then that's her being silly by association. And she didn't really like to have that associated with her. So for her, it was more like, oh, if I keep my distance, maybe they'll notice that there's a difference between us. And that way, I can still keep my level of cool.
Right. I was obsessed with being cool, whatever that may be. But, it's something I still struggle with today. And that really affected how I treated Diego, and I'm not proud of it. Because, I wanted to be cool, and he wasn't always cool. And so I tried to be something that I was not and make him something that he was not.
And this became a thing where I'm like, okay, what's going on? It's like, she likes me, but then obviously there are these things that are stopping her from actually being there, and it just kept happening. So then it became, for me, something where I'm like, oh, I'm not even sure she does like me.
Then we went to the Steubenville Lone Star Conference during the summer, and I don't really know what happened. It was just a buildup of all of what Diego just said, and I was just feeling it, and I was just like, ugh. And then we watched, listened to a dating talk together, and we're like, oh yeah, it's going great. And then the next day, or yeah, I just kept getting these weird feelings. And then I had a not great conversation in the hotel room with my friends, that night. They were like, oh, you should just, break up with him or something. And, because, they were like, well, if you're not feeling it, then you shouldn't be doing it, or, still there. And I was like, okay. And so then we get there, and it's, morning prayer, and I'm, sitting there. And then, for some reason, I never cry, ever. I just, started bawling because I was so overwhelmed with weird feelings that I didn't want to be having, and I just felt so much fear, and then it was just not good. And I was just hugging him, and he was really, oh, he was so sweet. He just took all my crap, and he was if you are going to break up with me, that's okay. You need to do what God's calling you to do or whatever. And, he was I'm sure on the inside, he was like that. But, on the outside at least, like he was just like so supportive of like whatever my decision was gonna be. I was just like so overwhelmed and confused, and I was just like, I just need to go home. So that
On my side of this, what was like when we were about to start Steubenville, I was going on a trip at the end of that weekend, and I was like, that's great, you know, we get to spend the whole weekend together at this conference before I leave, and we're gonna end up having like a bunch of fun, and it'll be a really nice way, and then I can come back, and then we'll be fine. And you know, it started off going pretty good. At the end of the night, I remember her coming up to me and like just grabbing my hand and saying, "Oh, I thought you were really cute today, and I really loved seeing you, seeing your faith in that moment when we were in adoration. That was really great." And then yeah, we got into the prayer in the morning, and she was sitting there, obviously distraught, and I remember her sitting down and she just hugged one of her friends, and then she got up and she hugged me, and I'm sitting there, and this whole time since the morning I've been thinking, okay, like she might be breaking up with me. But throughout the whole time I wasn't like, oh, I have to stop her because I don't have that I don't have the right to do that. That is not what I should be doing. And I remember she came, she just hugged me, and we weren't saying anything. And I didn't know, like, what this meant. I didn't know if in her head that was like, okay, it's okay, I still really like you, we're gonna keep dating, or if that was like, I just need to be with you right now because we were that close and I'm about to end it and this is gonna be our last time, or something like that. I had no idea what was happening in that moment.
I didn't know either. I had no clue.
And in that moment, I just looked at her and I was like, I love you, and that means I want what's best for you. If that means no me, then that means no me, and that's okay. I'll deal with it.
I forgot exactly what you said. You're so cute.
So I say that, and then we just like, we end that day, and then we're all about to head home, and I'm like, I'm about to go to Europe. Like, I'm about to go on a trip that night. And I'm like, we obviously can't leave this where it's at, and we need to talk. And at the end I was like, what are we going to do? Are we going to talk before we leave? What's happening? And then she was like, we'll just go home and then we'll talk before you leave.
That was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah. And we both went home, and I went and I finished packing really quickly. And as I finished packing, I had no clue what was going on. And I was just waiting for her to text me about when we were going to meet. And then my family's about to leave for Mass, and I told my mom, okay, I'm going to be leaving though because I'm going to go talk to Mackenzie. And I was like, is everything okay? Are you guys all right? And I was like, I have no idea.
Okay, so I decided to go home because I really want to talk to my mom. And honestly, the best piece of advice I could ever give is like, go talk to your mom or someone who has experience like dating someone or in marriage, because like my friends that were trying to give me advice in my hotel room, I love them, but like they cannot give me the advice that I needed. And if I would have just listened to them, and if I didn't have anyone to drive home, and if I was going to talk to Diego right then, we probably wouldn't be together today, and that would have been really sad. So, like, go home and, like, talk to someone, or, like, not necessarily your house, but, like, talk to someone who, like, actually knows what they're talking about. So, I got home, and I was like, Mom, can we go on a walk, like, now? She's like, okay. So, I go on a walk with her, and I just explain everything, like, dump all my feelings. And it was, like, really eye-opening because she showed me, one, how, like, my friends, as much as they might have had good intentions, like, did not necessarily know what they're talking about, because ultimately love is a choice, and like love is not always feelings, and like sometimes you don't always feel like lovey-dovey all the time, which is like one of the things I was struggling with, is like, what if I like don't have the feelings anymore? And like I still have the feelings today, so like they're still there, but like everyone, like, yeah, that's not how like it always goes. Like it's not gonna always be like you are like hard eyes.
When you start liking each other, you're gonna start feeling butterflies in your stomach and stuff like that, because you're starting to feel things that you've never felt. But then when you feel that way about someone for a long time, you get used to the feeling of liking someone for a long time, right? And like when you start dating or when you're just starting to become a thing or whatever, every hug gives you butterflies. When you've hugged a person 25,000 times, which we hadn't, but like when you've hugged a person enough times, it'll like you're not gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting hugged. Oh my gosh, you know, like that feeling will go away.
Yeah.
And it'll come back in certain moments with certain hugs and certain times like that. But generally, it won't be like every time you hug this person, you're gonna be like, wow.
Exactly.
You know?
And so that was one thing I was struggling with, and my mom just kind of like knocked me on the head and was like, I am not always attracted to your dad. I am not always like feeling lovey-dovey. Like, that's not how it works, but I still choose to love him. I was like, that's great. And also, I realized then how much I was really struggling with like jealousy and like concern with what other people thought. Like, I hadn't like really put the pieces of the puzzle together, but that's when I really did. Because I was like, you know, I enjoyed Diego's company whenever we're alone, or back then, whenever we were alone. But I did not enjoy his company when we were with people because I was so concerned about my image and his image and our image and what other people thought. And things that don't need to be concerned. Like, you don't need to be concerned about what other people think of you, because that'll just make you sad and always negative and a pessimist like I was or am. Not really. Not as much anymore. Anyway, and so that's what I also miss as well. And also, one last thing my mom pointed out to me was that I was feeling a lot of like anxiety and like fear and not good feelings. And God, whatever comes from God is like good. God is only good. And there's no way that a feeling from God could be like full of negativity or fear. There's always going to be like full of peace. Like, what I realized is that what could have been happening was that like the devil might have known, like, hopefully, how much of a force for good we're going to be, and didn't want that to happen. And so that day I decided I was going to stick with it, and I wanted to stick with Diego and work on my jealousy and work on improving myself, and hopefully like work together to improve each other and to become a force for good that, you know, shines for God and becomes something like valuable. And so yeah, so that's kind of what my mom helped me realize, and I'm really glad she did. So then I texted Diego we went to Dairy Queen.
She texted, let's go get some ice cream. I was like, okay. Which ice cream is usually a good sign, you know?
I love ice cream.
So at this point, I was like, okay, I think I'm okay, but I'm not sure. I'm not completely off the hook yet, you know? So then we get to the Dairy Queen, and again, we start talking. She's being really positive, so again, I'm like, okay, this is good, but I'm not completely off the hook. You know, I'm like trying to brace myself for what could happen. And then I remember her saying, oh yeah, and then my family's gonna do this whenever, do this thing whenever in like 3 weeks or whatever, which was by the time that I'd be back or something. And we'd love for you to come along. And at that point, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good. Like,
I'm never super like blunt with it. Like, I never told him, oh, I like you. I didn't tell him, oh, I'm not breaking up with you. I just told him slyly, hey, you want to come with my family to this thing when you come back? And he's like, oh, okay.
So to me, that was like, okay, if she's asking me to hang out with them when we get back, that means we're gonna be dating at that point, which means we're fine. And then after that, we just kept talking. We had a really good talk that day. And then we were fine before I went on my trip.
We love that Dairy Queen.
That is my favorite Dairy Queen and will always be my favorite Dairy Queen.
And we were hugging outside before he left because, like, he was going to Europe. And apparently my mom and my sister, like, drove by us and saw us hugging outside at Dairy Queen. Anyway, I learned how important Diego is in my life. He definitely is, like, making me such a better person than I was. And growing me. I'm way less jealous than I was, and I still have battles, and you know, it's just like any temptation, but like, you know, I know he's there for me, and that he really helps me through it, and that together we can help each other. Like, I've helped him through things, he's helped me through things, you know, and like ultimately we're going to be a force for good. Yay!
That also wasn't the end of the summer, though.
What was the rest of the summer?
We still had Laredo after that.
Okay, so we don't need to go into all the details, but we did have several other instances where I struggled again with insecurities and jealousy, and that affected our relationship. But I think my talking with my mom and us, like that pivotal Dairy Queen moment, helped us realize that through all the other trials we will have, because we're going to have other trials, through all the other points of like insecurities or jealousy or anything else, that like we're going to be there for each other.
And she's right. Like, that was the pivotal moment. And then, like, yes, those feelings came back of, oh, she's being distant when we're around people, or, oh, you know, this is happening. But past that moment, because we had, like, we talked and we had gone through something like that, I wasn't like, oh, this is happening and that means she's going to break up with me. I was like, oh, she's falling back into that habit that she has. And the more that it keeps happening, or the more that we went through that, the more comfortable we got about talking about it, and the easier it was to get over those little things.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yes, it was that was the pivotal moment that changed our relationship.
Yeah. And honestly, if we didn't have that summer or those moments, we probably wouldn't be where we are today, and we probably wouldn't be as close as we are today. Yeah, so y'all can hear the rest of our story next Tuesday when we talk about him moving away and going to school.
Yeah. And it might not all be in one video. We might have to talk about it in several segments. Also, this video is probably pretty long.
Yeah.
Might be one of our longest ones.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end.
If you made it.
Champs.
But yeah, like if you enjoyed the video, and we want to hear from you guys what you guys want to see from us in the future. So yeah, make sure to leave a comment and whatever else you might want to do. And yeah, I think that's it.